Hey guys, it's Miss Dopes. Today we're going to be working on a bookmaking project. So we have books for like everything. All of our textbooks are books. Those are all made with like binding, paper, and there's a lot that goes into making a book. So one of my hobbies is actually bookmaking. And you can see like there are lots of different ways to do it. You can like sew everything together. You can turn them into pop-up books. So this one is like a cloth-bound hardback book, super big. But what we'll be learning today is going to be a beginner's level book. So what we are going to need for our book today is going to be something to make our cover out of. We're going to need paper to go on the inside. Something to sew it with, which could be yarn, embroidery floss, some string, or even dental floss if you don't have any of those other items around. And we'll need something to poke a hole. So if you don't have a fancy schmancy awl lying around, you could use a sturdy paper clip. So this one's pretty tough. It's not a very flimsy one. Or a needle. And the needle I think works best because you're going to need to sew it anyway. So if you don't have a needle and thread, you can also, just when you poke your hole, just make your hole a little bit bigger and then you can kind of stick your thread through there. So there are a lot of ways we can get around having, different types of tools. So for your paper on the inside, it can be some scrap paper that you have lying around. It could be your notebook paper. I have some copy paper, which is what I'm going to use. And I have, just a few pages here. But what we're going to want to do to start, is to make sure we have something to make a cover out of that's just a little bit bigger than this. And we also want something a little sturdier. So I cut this off of a cereal box, and if you notice, the box is just barely bigger than my paper, which is what we want, because we want a little overlap because the cover is there just to protect what's inside of it. So you could also use, like if you've got some drawing paper around, this is just a little bit stiffer paper than what goes inside of it. So be creative with finding something that you can make a cover out of. It doesn't have to be a traditional art cover. It could be anything. So to start with, we're going to need to fold our papers in half. And I've only got 2 papers right here, so I'll get a couple more. And I'm just going to lay them flat. This isn't going to be a super huge book. Since we're using a needle or a paper clip to poke our hole, we can't punch it through anything super duper thick. So I'm going to start by folding my paper in half. And I'm going to crease it. Now we want our paper to lay pretty flat. So I use my thumbnail and kind of run down that fold, kind of squishing it down on there so that we've got our nice crisp fold. So now I've got my cover and I folded that one in half as well. So we need to make 2 holes in our paper. I'm going to put one right here, and then I'll put one right down here. So this is really about an inch from the top and from the bottom. So I'm not sewing it yet. I'm just going to use my pointy object to poke a hole in there. Now this might be something that you may need your parent to help out with. So if you have like a needle or something like that, make sure it is okay for you to use that. Or if you're struggling trying to push this hole through, the paper clip through, make sure you get some help so you don't poke a hole in your finger. Alright, so you can see that my little holes they kind of pop up just a little bit. So now I'm going to take my book, the inside of my book, my folio, which is what that is, little group of paper is called, and I'm going to set it inside. So I'm going to try to center it so that I have the same amount on the top here and on the bottom. And now I'm going to push back through that same hole and poke a hole in there. Alright, so I'm going to hold this in place so it doesn't slide around, because I need these to stay lined up when I come back. So now I'll poke my hole right here. It is a lot easier to pre-make your holes before you try to sew it. So now I'm very carefully going to go around here to this back area so you can see. So that's where my little hole is on that side. So I'm going to put my needle back through. Alright. Now that I've got my thread on there, and then I'm going to come down to here. Now you need to make sure you have enough thread, and extra definitely doesn't hurt. So if you guys can see, I've got a whole bunch of extra thread here. So you can pull back through here, and I want, really a good way to do it is to make sure that this thread is long enough to go all the way over to here, and this thread is long enough to go back over to this hole. And now I can snip off the extra. Alright, so now we are going to tie our little knot right about in the middle. So you can tie a knot like you're tying your shoes. You can make a little bow if you want to. I like to use a square knot, which you're going to take your right thread over the left one and then bring it up. Pull it down. This is definitely a spot where it would help to have somebody helping out, because they can put their finger there, kind of like when you're tying a bow on a present. It's good to have extra hands. Alright, so now I'm going to go left. So this one's on the left over the right one, and tighten it up like that. So now we have our fabulous little book, and this is a really simple book. So they get harder and harder basically books get as advanced as you could ever want them to be, but this is like the way you would start. So you don't just jump into, you know, painting the Mona Lisa. You start out at the beginning, and so this is a great way to start learning how to make a book. And these same techniques with the sewing and the holes and lining everything up, those are the same thing that professional bookmakers make. So just be careful while you are working on this, and be really creative. Find interesting papers to make for your covers. It doesn't have to be like an entire sheet of paper. Maybe you cut papers in half and then make the book that way. They don't all have to be the same colors. This one's got lots of different sheets of colors in there. This one right here is a piece of construction paper with some decorative paper I found, and the inside, this stuff is all from like paper bags. You could make your cover out of junk mail, and whatever you do with the inside of your book is totally up to you. So you could draw on it, you can make a flip book, put your notes from class in there, you could write a novel in there, whatever you want. So I hope you guys find this useful, and I hope you make a ton of little books so that I can see them. So have fun. If you got any questions, let me know. Thank you, and have a good night. Bye.